That was God. I want you to think back, right now, to a moment in your life that you never quite had words for, a moment you survived and couldn't explain, a door that closed right before you walked through it, and you were angry about it for months, until one day you saw what was waiting on the other side of that door, and your whole body went still. A phone call that came at the exact second you needed it, a stranger who said one sentence that changed the direction of your entire life. A delay that annoyed you, that turned out to be the very thing that protected you. You called it luck, you called it coincidence, you called it good timing, a close call, a weird feeling, a gut instinct. But deep down, in the quietest part of you, in the part that doesn't perform for anyone, you've always known what it really was. That was God. And tonight, I want to walk back through your life with you, slowly, gently, not to stir up old pain, but to put a new name on old moments. Because I believe something happens inside a person when they stop calling God's fingerprints a coincidence. I believe something shifts, something heals, something wakes up. So get comfortable, let your shoulders drop, unclench your jaw. You've been carrying it tight all day, haven't you? Take one slow breath in and let it out even slower. You don't have to do anything for the next hour except listen. And remember, let's start with the close calls. Every single person listening to this has at least one. The accident that almost happened, the car that swerved at the last second, the diagnosis that turned out to be nothing after a week of fearing it was everything, the flight you missed, the job you almost took, the person you almost married, the place you almost moved, the night you almost didn't come home. Almost. That word carries more of God than we ever give it credit for. Because the truth is, you have been protected from things you never even saw coming. For every danger you noticed and narrowly escaped, there were 10 you never knew existed. The rerouted plans, the slow cashier, the red light that made you 3 minutes late, 3 minutes that placed you behind the accident instead of inside it. You will never get to see the full list of things that never happened to you. That list is sealed. But one day, I believe you'll understand just how many times the answer to how did I make it through that season was never your cleverness, never your hustle, never your luck. It was a hand you couldn't see, on a life you couldn't steer. That was God, and I know some of you are already feeling something rise up in your chest as I say this, because you're remembering a specific moment right now. Don't push it away, sit with it, let yourself feel the weight of having been kept, because that's the word, isn't it? Kept, not just lucky, not just fortunate, kept, held onto, watched over, preserved on purpose by someone who had a reason to preserve you. You were not kept alive by accident. You were kept alive on assignment. Now let's talk about the closed doors, because this is where it gets harder. This is where most of us have our deepest wounds and our deepest misunderstandings about God. The job you didn't get, you prayed for it, you prepared for it, you told people about it before it was even yours, because you were that sure. And then the email came. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. And you sat there, staring at the screen, wondering why God would let you get that close just to watch it fall apart. The relationship that ended, the one you thought was it, the one you defended to your friends, the one you bent yourself out of shape for, the one you prayed would work even while something quiet inside you kept whispering that it wouldn't. The opportunity that went to someone else, the house that fell through, the plan that collapsed for reasons that made no sense at the time. Here's what I've learned about closed doors. And I say this as someone who has stood in front of plenty of them, pounding, begging, negotiating. Some doors don't close because you weren't good enough. Some doors close because what was behind them would have cost you more than you could see from the hallway. That job you cried over losing. Do you know what that company went through 2 years later? Do you know what that role would have demanded of your health, your family, your peace? You saw a salary. God saw a trap dressed up as a blessing. That person you couldn't let go of, the one you bargained with heaven over. Look at your life now. Look at who you became after the ache faded. Some of you are sitting in a life right now that could never have existed if that door had opened. The family you have, the freedom you have, the person you became in the rebuilding. The rejection felt like abandonment, but it was actually navigation. That was God. Not God being cruel, not God ignoring your prayers. God answering a prayer you didn't know how to pray. Protect me from what I'm asking for. Because that's the prayer underneath all our prayers, isn't it? We ask for what we want, but what we really need is for someone wiser than us to filter our requests through a love that can see around corners. And he does. He always has. Every unanswered prayer in your past is sitting in one of two files, not yet, or I love you too much. Let that settle for a moment. Some of the things you begged for and didn't get were withheld by love, not punishment, not indifference. Love. The same way a parent takes something sharp out of a toddler's hand while the toddler screams like the world is ending. The child sees loss, the parent sees rescue. You've screamed over some rescues in your life. We all have. That was God. Now, the delays. Oh, the delays. If closed doors wound our hearts, delays wear down our hope. Because a closed door is at least an answer. A delay is silence, stretched out, day after day, year after year sometimes. The healing that's taking longer than you thought. The breakthrough that keeps feeling like it's 1 month away, and has felt that way for 3 years. The dream that everyone else seems to be living while you're still waiting in the lobby of your own life. I want to say something about waiting that I wish someone had said to me sooner. Waiting is not nothing. Waiting is not wasted time. Waiting is not God forgetting your file on his desk. In the waiting, roots grow that nothing in your visible life will explain until the storm comes, and you're the only one still standing. In the waiting, character gets built that the blessing is going to need. Because here's the hard truth nobody posts about. Some blessings, delivered early, become burdens. Some doors, opened early, become exits out of your purpose instead of entrances into it. You wanted the platform before you had the foundation. You wanted the relationship before you had the wholeness. You wanted the increase before you had the discipline. And God, because he actually loves you and isn't just trying to keep you comfortable, said, not yet. Not no, not never, not yet. And while you were calling it a delay, he was calling it development. While you were checking the clock, he was checking the depth of your roots. Think about who you were 5 years ago. Be honest. Could that version of you have handled what you were asking for back then? Could they have carried it without being crushed by it, or corrupted by it, or losing themselves inside it? The weight that frustrated you matured you. The silence that hurt you strengthened you. The season that felt like a holding pattern was a hidden classroom. That was God. Now I want to talk about the people. Because God rarely shows up in your life wearing a name tag. Most of the time, he shows up wearing someone else's face. The teacher who saw something in you before you saw it in yourself and said one sentence you've never forgotten. The friend who called on the exact night you didn't want to be alone and didn't even know why they were calling. I just felt like I should check on you. How many times have you heard that sentence at the precise moment you were unraveling? They felt like they should. They had a nudge, a thought that wouldn't leave them alone. Who do you think nudged them? The stranger who paid for your coffee on the morning you were deciding whether you could keep going? The boss who took a chance on you when your resume said they shouldn't? The neighbor who showed up with food? The person in the waiting room who started a conversation that gave you the exact words you needed? The friend of a friend who knew someone, who opened the door that changed everything? We call it networking. We call it kindness. We call it the universe. But when the right person appears at the right moment, with the right words, carrying the right key over and over and over across the span of your life, at some point, honesty requires a better explanation than chance. That was God wearing skin. God using hands that weren't his to deliver help that was. And here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. You have been that person for someone else. The day you felt the urge to send that text, the moment you turned around and went back, the compliment you almost didn't give, the call you almost didn't make. You were the answer to a prayer you never heard, sent by a God you couldn't see, to a person who went home that night and whispered thank you into the dark. You've been someone's "that was God" moment, probably more than once, probably this year. Sit with that. You haven't just received the fingerprints, you've been the fingerprints. And if this is landing on you right now, If you're lying there remembering faces and phone calls and moments you haven't thought about in years, I want you to do something simple. Share this with one person who has a "that was God's story" of their own. You already know who came to mind just now. That nudge you're feeling, well, you know by now how nudges work. And if you want more moments like this one, more time set aside to remember who's been holding your life together, make sure you're subscribed so this voice can find you again on the nights you need it most. Now, let's go somewhere quieter. Let's talk about the thoughts. Because God doesn't only move through events and people. Sometimes he moves through the inside of your own mind so gently that you assume the thought was yours. The sudden urge to check on your child, that turned out to matter. The feeling that you should leave early, take a different route, double-check the lock, read that email one more time. The idea that dropped into your head out of nowhere, fully formed, solving a problem you'd been stuck on for weeks. The conviction, quiet but immovable, that you should not get in that car, not sign that paper, not trust that person, even though everything on the surface looked fine. We call it intuition. We call it a gut feeling. And listen, God made your gut too. He's not above using it. But how many times has a random thought saved you, redirected you, prepared you? How many times did you say, something told me to call her, something told me to go back, something told me to wait, something told me not to. Something or someone. I'm not asking you to get spooky about every passing thought. I'm asking you to get honest about the pattern. Because a coincidence is a thing that happens once. A pattern is a signature, and your life, if you really look at it, is covered in signatures. That was God. Now let's talk about the peace. This one is subtle, but for some of you, this is the one that will undo you tonight. In the best way. Have you ever felt peace at a moment that made no sense, standing in the rubble of something that should have destroyed you, and feeling underneath the grief a steadiness you couldn't account for? In the hospital hallway, at the funeral, the night the marriage ended, the day the business failed, the season when everything you'd built came down, and somehow you were okay, not happy, not fine, but held, carried by something that didn't make sense. People even said it to you. I don't know how you're handling this. And you didn't know either. You just knew that something was holding you up from underneath, like a flaw you couldn't see. That flaw had a name. Peace that doesn't match your circumstances is not denial. And it's not strength. And it's not numbness. It's presence. It's what it feels like when God sits down next to you in the worst room of your life and doesn't leave. He didn't always remove the storm. I won't pretend he did. Some of you walked through things that should not happen to anyone, and I'm not going to insult your pain by wrapping it in a bow, but ask yourself this, in the middle of it, in the absolute middle of it, how did you sleep that one night when sleep should have been impossible? Where did that one deep breath come from? Who steadied you in the moment you were certain you would shatter? You didn't white-knuckle your way through that season, you were carried through it. And the proof is that you're here, listening to this. Softer than that season should have left you. Still able to love, still able to hope, still here. That was God. Now I want to go somewhere a little uncomfortable. Because I'd be lying to you if I only talked about the moments that feel good in hindsight. Let's talk about the things that fell apart. The collapse you didn't see coming. The loss that rearranged your whole life. The season where it felt like the bottom didn't just drop out, it disappeared entirely. I'm not going to tell you God caused every painful thing in your life. Life in this world breaks things. People make choices that wound other people. And not every tragedy is a secret blessing in costume. I want to be careful here, because some of you have been hurt by people who slapped a spiritual sticker on your suffering and called it a sermon. But I will tell you this, and I'll stake everything on it. God has never once wasted your pain. Not one tear, not one sleepless night, not one season of rubble. Because look at what he built with it. Look at what grew in the broken ground. The compassion you have now, you didn't have before the breaking. The depth you have now came from places you never wanted to go. The people you can reach now can only be reached by someone who's been where you've been. Your scars are credentials. Your survival is a sermon you never had to write. Some of you lost the life you planned, and found a life you never could have planned. The detour became the destination. The plan B turned out to be the assignment all along. The wilderness you thought was punishment turns out it was preparation and protection and pruning all at once. The fire didn't consume you, it refined you. There's a difference, and you're living it. That was God, not necessarily in the breaking, but absolutely in the rebuilding. Not always in the storm, but always, always in the survival. Now, let's talk about provision, because this might be the most overlooked category of all. How many times in your life have you made it to the end of the month, and to this day you cannot explain the math? The money came from somewhere. The check arrived, the refund you forgot about, the bill that got reduced, the friend who insisted, the work that appeared exactly when the account hit empty. You've done budgets that shouldn't have balanced, and they balanced. You've stretched meals, stretched gas tanks, stretched $20 bills like they were elastic, and somehow, you never went completely under. The water rose to your chin so many times. But here you are, still breathing. I'm not romanticizing struggle. Struggle is exhausting, and I pray you see seasons of overflow. But don't you dare look back at those lean years and credit only your grind. Your grind was real, but your grind had help. There were months that were carried. There were gaps that were covered by a hand you never saw, quietly, without a receipt, without taking credit. That's the thing about God's provision. It loves disguises. It looks like a sale at exactly the right time. It looks like leftovers that multiplied. It looks like a job tip from a stranger. It looks like, I was about to throw this away, do you want it? It looks like favor you didn't earn from people you barely knew. You thought you were getting by. You were being gotten by. That was God. And while we're here, think about the timing of your whole life for a second. Pull the camera all the way back. The city you ended up in, that you never planned on. The career you fell into, through a door you didn't even know existed. The way you met the people you love most. Trace it backwards sometime. Really trace it. The chain of tiny, fragile, improbable events that had to line up perfectly. The party you almost didn't go to. The class you almost didn't take. The message you almost didn't answer. The wrong turn. The chance meeting. The friend who dragged you out that one night. One link breaks, and your whole life is different. The people you can't imagine living without would be strangers. Now, either you are the single luckiest person who has ever lived. Either your entire existence is a tower of coincidences 10,000 layers high that just happens to keep standing. Or somebody has been writing this whole time. Somebody has been arranging, sequencing, placing you, moving you, timing you, like an author who knows the last page while you're still nervous in chapter 4. Your story has been too precise to be random. The plot twists land too perfectly. The characters arrive too exactly on cue. The thing that looked like a typo in chapter 3 turns out to be foreshadowing. That was God, the whole time, in the margins of every page. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly, in the privacy of your own heart, where nobody's watching. Why is it so hard for us to say it? Why do we reach for every other word first? Luck, coincidence, karma, the universe, good vibes, right place, right time. Why does "that was God" get stuck in our throats, even when we know, even when the evidence is overwhelming, even when no other explanation actually holds the weight? I think part of it is fear, because if it was God, then he's real, and if he's real, then he's close, and if he's close, then he's seen everything, and if he's seen everything and still kept showing up for us, then we owe a response. Gratitude is a door, and on the other side of it is relationship, and relationship changes things. Sometimes coincidence is just the word we use to keep God at a comfortable distance, and I think part of it is pain, because if God was there for the rescue, where was he for the wound? That's a real question. That's not a question I'll shame you for. Some of you have carried that question for decades, quietly, politely, while it sat on your chest like a stone. I won't pretend to hand you a tidy answer tonight. I don't have the blueprints to everything heaven allows, but I'll tell you what I've noticed in my own life. The same God I blamed for not preventing the wound kept showing up to dress it. The same seasons I felt most abandoned in are the seasons that, looking back, have the most fingerprints on them, closer than I thought, quieter than I wanted. But there, sometimes we're so busy interrogating God about the storm that we miss the fact that we're interrogating Him from dry land. We made it. Someone got us here. The conversation itself is evidence of a rescue. And maybe tonight isn't about resolving every question. Maybe tonight is just about saying the sentence, out loud or in a whisper, just once, about just one moment. That was God! Try it. Pick the moment. You already know which one. It surfaced 20 minutes ago and it hasn't left. Put His name on it. Take Luck's name off of it. Luck never loved you. And put the right name on it. Feel that? That little shift in your chest? That's what recognition feels like. That's what it feels like when gratitude finds its address. Because unnamed grace still saves you, but named grace changes you. This is why I do this. Why these messages exist. Because somewhere out there, somebody needed permission tonight to rename their whole story. If that's you, if something has been shifting in you this past hour, drop the words, "That was God," in the comments. Not for me, but because your story might be the proof somebody else's faith is starving for. Testimony is contagious. Somebody scrolling at 2 a.m. needs to read yours. Now, let's talk about what changes when you start seeing Him everywhere. Because recognition isn't just a warm feeling, it's a new set of eyes. Once you learn to spot the fingerprints in your past, you start spotting them in your present, in real time. And that changes how you walk through your days. The interruption stops being just an annoyance and becomes a question. Okay, what is this protecting me from or pointing me toward? The closed door stings, but underneath the sting, there's a strange steadiness. The last 10 closed doors all turned out to be mercy. Maybe this one is too. The waiting still aches, but it aches with company now, because you've stopped believing the silence is empty. This is what trust actually is, not pretending everything feels good. Trust is pattern recognition. Trust is your history with God, informing your interpretation of today. He came through and came through and came through. So even though today's situation is unresolved, you find yourself leaning almost involuntarily toward hope. Your memory becomes your medicine. Your history becomes your anchor. That's why remembering matters so much. That's why tonight matters. We don't remember to live in the past. We remember to survive the present. Every "that was God" you can name from yesterday is fuel for the thing you're facing right now. So let me ask you, what are you facing right now? The thing that's been sitting on you all week? The decision, the diagnosis, the distance in that relationship, the dream that's on life support, the bill, the waiting, the fear that visits at this exact hour of night, which might be exactly why you're listening to this. Now hold that thing in one hand and hold your history in the other. The God of your close calls is in this with you. The God who closed those doors at the last second is reading the situation with eyes you don't have. The God who sent the right person at the right moment over and over your entire life has not suddenly lost your address. The God who carried you through the thing you swore would end you is not intimidated by the thing in your hand right now. He didn't bring you this far to drop you. That's not a cliche, that's a track record. One day, maybe a year from now, maybe 10, you're going to look back at this exact season, the one you're in right now, the one that feels so uncertain and unresolved, and you're going to see it, the thread, the setup, the reason, the fingerprints, and you're going to shake your head slowly the way you've done before, and you're going to say it again. That was God. The thing you're crying about right now might be the testimony you tell with dry eyes and a steady voice. The door closing this month might be the rescue you thank Him for next year. The delay that's frustrating you tonight might be the development your future is depending on. You just can't see it from inside the chapter. You never can. That's not a design flaw. That's what faith is for. Faith is just trusting the author between the plot twists. Now I want to slow down even more and talk about something we almost never talk about, the subtractions. Because we spend so much time grieving the people who left, that we rarely stop to ask whether some of those exits were deliveries. Think about the friend who faded out of your life, and you took it personally for years until you watched, from a distance, the direction their life went, and realized that if you'd still been close, you'd have been pulled along for the ride. The mentor who turned on you, and it broke your heart, but it also broke a dependency that was quietly becoming a ceiling. The group that excluded you, the circle that closed without you in it, and you cried about it, until you saw what that circle protected and covered and tolerated, and understood that being left out was being lifted out. Some people are removed from your life the way a surgeon removes something, not because the cutting feels good, but because what was growing there would have cost you everything. You begged God to restore some relationships he was busy rescuing you from. You called it rejection. Heaven called it extraction. That was God. And it works the other way too. Think about who stayed. In a world where people leave, somebody stayed. Through your worst seasons. Through the versions of you that you're embarrassed by now. Somebody saw you at your lowest, your meanest, your most lost, and didn't walk. Where do you think that kind of loyalty comes from? Love that endures what your behavior didn't deserve is not natural. It's supernatural. On loan. Delivered through a person who probably couldn't explain why they stayed either. The stayers and the leavers. Both lists. Curated. Both lists. Mercy. Now here's another one, and this one takes real honesty to see. Think about who you almost became. There was a version of you that almost happened. The version that kept going down that road. The version that stayed in that environment, kept that habit, kept feeding that bitterness, kept chasing that crowd. You got close enough to that version of yourself to smell the smoke. Some of you got so close that the people around you started grieving you while you were still alive. And then, something interrupted. A consequence that came early enough to wake you up, but late enough to be undeniable. A rock bottom that had a flaw. When plenty of people fall through flaws, a moment of clarity that arrived from outside of you. Because let's be honest, you weren't producing clarity back then. Somebody's prayer you didn't know about. A door that locked behind you so you couldn't go back even when you wanted to. You didn't just survive your circumstances, you survived yourself, and nobody survives themselves alone. The you that's listening tonight, reflective, softened, still standing, exists because someone interrupted the other version. Lovingly, persistently, sometimes painfully. That was God. And while we're being honest, let's talk about the second chances. Plural. Because you didn't get one, you got a stack of them. The time you were forgiven when you'd braced for the door. The opportunity that circled back after you'd fumbled it the first time. Because who gets the same door twice? You did. The relationship that survived the thing you said. The trust that got rebuilt after you broke it. The morning after the night you were sure you'd ruined everything, when the sun came up anyway and somehow there was still a path. Grace has been running a quiet tab in your life for years, and never once handed you the bill. Every restart you've ever been handed, every let's try again, every mercy that arrived new in the morning when yesterday's failures should have followed you in. That wasn't the world being kind. The world isn't that kind. That was a father who keeps no record the way you keep records, handing you back your own story, freshly blank, page after page after page. That was God. Now let me touch something tender. Your body. Your health. The vessel you've been riding around in this whole time. The recovery the doctors called faster than expected. The thing they caught early, because of an appointment you almost cancelled. The strength that showed up during the season your body should have buckled when you were running on no sleep, carrying everyone, and somehow your legs kept holding. The healing that came, slow, maybe, imperfect, maybe, but it came, and even now, tonight, without you asking, your heart is keeping time, your lungs are trading air, 1,000 systems are cooperating in the dark beneath your awareness, holding you in existence second by second, while you lie there worrying about things far smaller than the miracle of your own continuing. You have been sustained, not just in the dramatic moments, but in every undramatic one. Existence itself has been a daily delivery you never signed for. That was God, is God, present tense, right now, in your pulse. And that brings me to the ordinary days, because I'd be doing you a disservice tonight if I let you believe God only lives in the highlight reel. Most of his faithfulness doesn't look like lightning. It looks like Tuesday. It looks like a morning where nothing went wrong, which you forgot to count because we only count the days something breaks. It looks like a meal, a bed, a door that locks, water that runs warm. It looks like a child laughing in the next room. It looks like your coffee and a sunrise you were too busy to watch, and the unremarkable mercy of an uneventful drive home. We treat the ordinary like it's nothing, but ask anyone who's lost the ordinary what it was worth. Ask the person in the hospital what they'd pay for one boring Tuesday at home. Ask the grieving what they'd give for one more unremarkable dinner with that voice at the table. The ordinary is not the absence of God. The ordinary is God's faithfulness running so smoothly that you stopped hearing the engine. Every safe, boring, forgettable day of your life was upheld, guarded, provisioned by the same hand that did the dramatic rescues. He doesn't only show up for emergencies, he maintains, he sustains. He keeps the lights on in your life on all the days you never once looked up. That was God too, maybe mostly that. Now think about the gifts, the ones sown into you before you could earn anything, the way your mind works, the thing you're naturally good at that always felt easy to you, that other people marvel at, the sense of humor that has carried you and everyone around you through things humor had no business surviving, the resilience you didn't train for, the compassion you came wired with, the way children trust you, or rooms calm down around you, or broken people find their way to your door like you've got a sign out front. You didn't choose your gifts. You discovered them, already installed, already waiting. Somebody packed your bags before you ever left for this life, and packed them specifically for a journey only he could see from the start, and the assignments came pre-matched to the gifting. Have you noticed that? The very things you've been through line up suspiciously well with the very things you're equipped to help others through. Your wiring fits your story fits your purpose. The coincidences just keep stacking, don't they? That was God playing the long game with your design. So now pull all of it together, the close calls and the closed doors, the delays and the deliveries, the people sent and the people removed, the thoughts dropped in, the peace that held the floor, the provision with no receipt, the second chances, the body that kept going, the ordinary days, the gifts in the suitcase. And look at what you're holding. That's not a pile of luck. That's a body of evidence. That's a lifetime of fingerprints. On every page, in every margin. Through every chapter you were sure he'd skipped. You haven't lived an unsupervised life, not for one single day. There's one more set of fingerprints I want to show you, and these are the ones most people never think to look for. The prayers you never heard. Somewhere in your story, somebody prayed for you. Maybe a grandmother whose knees knew the floor better than her feet did. Maybe a mother who whispered your name into the dark long after you stopped speaking to her. Maybe a friend you lost touch with. A stranger in a congregation somewhere. A coworker who saw your storm and took it home with them. People have stood in the gap for you that you will never know about on this side of things. And I believe some of the rescues we've talked about tonight, some of the close calls, some of the interruptions, some of the mercy that arrived with no explanation, were prayers landing, prayers prayed years before, still in flight, arriving in your life right on schedule. Love that someone sent up on your behalf, coming back down as protection you couldn't account for. You have been covered by intercession you never requested, carried by faith that wasn't even yours yet. Some of you are alive on borrowed prayers, and the lender never asked to be paid back. That was God, honoring voices you never heard, on behalf of a you they could only hope for. And maybe that's your invitation too, to become that voice for somebody else, to pray for people who will never know, to send up cover for your children's children, for the friend who's drifting, for the stranger whose face stayed with you. Somewhere down the line, in a moment of rescue they can't explain, your name will be part of the reason. That's a quiet kind of legacy, and it might be the most powerful one there is. Now, here's something subtle. Have you ever noticed how the right words find you at the right time? The song that came on, the exact one, in the exact moment your heart was breaking, and it said what you couldn't say. The message that showed up in your feed the very week you were wrestling with that very thing, and you sat there thinking, how does this person know my life? The sentence in a book that stopped you cold, the voice of a friend saying word for word the thing you'd been asking God about privately, with no way of knowing, even tonight, even this. Out of everything you could be listening to right now, every video, every voice, every distraction available to you at this hour, you're here, listening to a message about recognizing God in your story, on a night when, let's be honest, you needed to remember. You didn't stumble in here. You were walked in here. The words keep finding you because someone keeps sending them. He has been talking to you your whole life, through lyrics and strangers and pages and timing, patient as rain, willing to use any channel you'd actually receive. That was God. This is God, even now. Before we close, I want to do something with you, not just talk at you, but actually walk through a moment of recognition together, right where you are, eyes closed if they aren't already. I'm going to name some things slowly, and as I do, let the specific memories surface. Don't force them, don't perform. Just let your own story answer. Think of one time you were protected and didn't find out until later. Got it? Hold it for a second, see it clearly, and quietly in your heart say, that was you. Now think of one door that closed, that you're now grateful never opened. Take your time. There's no rush at this hour. See where you'd be if it had opened. Feel the relief of where you are instead, and say it again. That was you. Now one person, just one, who arrived in your life at a moment too perfect to be random. See their face. Remember what they carried in. Maybe it was a word, maybe a key, maybe just presence, and say, that was you. Thank you for sending them. Now one provision, one time the math didn't work and somehow the month did. Remember the relief, remember the exhale, and whisper, that was you. And now, one ordinary day. Just pick one. A day nothing went wrong. A day so unremarkable you'd have never thought of it again, until tonight. A day of quiet engines and kept lights and uneventful mercy. And say, that was you too, and I never said thank you for it, so I'm saying it now. Do you feel what just happened? That's not just gratitude. That's reunion. That's a heart finding its way back to the truth of its own story. 5 moments, 5 fingerprints, named and known. And there are thousands more where those came from. Enough to fill every night for the rest of your life. Enough that you could do this little inventory every single evening and never once run out. Maybe that's the invitation. Maybe this becomes the way you end your days now. Not scrolling, not rehearsing tomorrow's worries in the dark, but flipping back through the day's pages, looking for prints. They're always there. Some days they're small. A kindness, a near miss, a moment of unexplainable calm. Some days they're unmistakable, but there has never been a day without them, and there never will be. The person who falls asleep counting evidence of love wakes up different than the person who falls asleep counting worries. Same bed, same life, different eyes. So let your breathing slow down a little more. We're almost home. Breathe in, slowly. And as you do, I want you to picture your life as that book we talked about, sitting on a table, your name on the cover. Breathe out and watch the pages turn backwards, gently, through everything we've walked through tonight. There's the close call, the one only you know about, and now you can see what you couldn't see then. You were never alone in that moment. There's the closed door, and look, for the first time, you can see through it. You can see what it spared you from, and your old anger softens into something that feels almost like gratitude. There's the long wait, and now you can see what was growing under the surface the entire time. Roots, depth, you. There are the faces, everyone who arrived on cue, everyone who was moved out of frame at exactly the right time. There's the night the peace came and sat with you in the worst room of your life and stayed until morning. Page after page, fingerprints, margin after margin, mercy, chapter after chapter, an author who never once put the pen down. And now the pages turn forward again, past tonight, into chapters you haven't lived yet. And here's what I want you to notice. The fingerprints don't stop at today's page. They keep going, into tomorrow morning, into next month's uncertainty, into the decision you haven't made and the news you haven't gotten and the doors you haven't reached yet. He is already in your future, the same way he was already in your past before you got there, already arranging, already positioning people you haven't met, already closing what needs to close and unlocking what needs to open. The God of your hindsight is the God of your horizon. You're not walking into tomorrow hoping he'll show up. You're walking into rooms he's already standing in. So release it, whatever you've been gripping tonight, the outcome you've been trying to control, the timeline you've been trying to enforce, the question you've been trying to answer for him. Open your hands. You've seen the track record now. The case has been made. The evidence is in. He has been faithful in 1,000 moments you didn't even witness. He's not going to start failing you in the one you're worried about. Let your jaw unclench again. Let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Let the bed hold you the way you've been held all along. And just rest in this. Kept then, kept now, kept tomorrow. So, let me give you something to take with you. Something simple, because an hour from now, this feeling will fade if you don't put handles on it. Start keeping a record. Serious. A note in your phone, a cheap journal, the back page of something. Title it whatever you want. Fingerprints, receipts. That was God. And every time you spot one, the timing, the provision, the nudge, the near miss, the right person, the unexplainable piece, write it down. One line, that's all. Date it. Because here's what happens. Faith leaks, memory fades. The miracle of March feels ordinary by November, and the enemy of your soul is counting on your forgetfulness. Because a person with no record of God's faithfulness has to face every new storm like it's their first one. But a person with receipts is dangerous. A person with receipts walks into uncertainty differently. They flip back through the pages and they remember. Oh, right. He does this. This is what he does. This is who he is. Your written record becomes your war chest. On the worst nights, you won't need a new miracle. You'll just need to reread the old ones. And then, one more thing. Tell the stories, out loud, to your kids, your friends, the person at work who's falling apart quietly, not preachy, not polished, just true. Let me tell you about the time. Stories of God's faithfulness are seeds, and you have no idea what soil is sitting across the table from you. Your testimony might be the exact evidence someone else's breaking point is waiting for. Somebody needs to know that the God who showed up for you shows up, period, and that if he did it in your life, their life isn't out of his range. Now, as we start to bring this in for a landing, I want to speak directly to a few people. To the person who's been calling everything coincidence for years because believing felt naive and you've worked hard to be someone who isn't fooled. I see you. Nobody's asking you to abandon your mind. Bring your mind with you. Just let it look at the whole pattern honestly, every link in the chain, every improbable rescue, and ask your sharp, skeptical mind one question. What explanation actually carries this weight? You don't have to force the answer tonight. Just stay open. He's not afraid of your questions. He's been answering them quietly for years. To the person in the middle of the storm right now, who's listening to all this talk of hindsight while standing in something that has no hindsight yet. I'm not going to pat your head. It's hard. It's real. But hear me. The fingerprints are going on your story right now, tonight, in the dark, where you can't see them yet. The same way they always have. You will not always be in this chapter, and the author has never once abandoned a story mid-sentence. To the person who feels like they've wasted too much time, who's listening to this with regret climbing up their throat. Why didn't I see it sooner? Why did I waste years calling him luck? Hear this clearly. Recognition has no expiration date. The thanks you give tonight for a rescue from 20 years ago arrives right on time. He wasn't keeping score while you weren't looking. He was just keeping you. And to the person who just feels tired, not dramatic, not in crisis, just worn thin and quietly wondering if any of it matters. You didn't find this message by accident. You of all people should know better by now. You, with your lifetime of perfect timing, your collection of close calls and right people and unexplainable provision. Tonight is just one more entry on the list. One more nudge. One more, I'm still here, from the one who has never once lost track of you. So here's my blessing over you tonight. Receive it. May your eyes open to the fingerprints on your past, your present, and your future. May every coincidence lose its disguise. May you remember, at the exact moments you need to, every time he came through. May the peace that's carried you before carry you again tonight. May the doors that need to close, close fast, and the doors that need to open, open wide. And may you trust the hand on both handles. May you sleep tonight like someone who is kept. Because you are. You always have been. Look back over it all one more time before you drift off. The saves, the setups, the people, the timing, the peace, the provision, the whole improbable, intricate, mercy-soaked story of your life. It was never luck. It was never coincidence. It was never just good timing. That was God. It's always been God. And he's not finished with your story yet. Good night. Rest well. You're in good hands. You always were.